Hello everyone, welcome to Karthikeya IAS Academy. Let's see the next class in the target prelims 2022. The first topic we are going to discuss is regarding the slender loris. Okay, what is this slender loris? It is a kind of a primate. Okay, this animal is a kind of a primate. So here, first we'll discuss few points regarding this animal, its habitat or its food habits and which kind of animal it is. Later we'll see why it is actually in news. Okay, now, if you see about this animal, slender loris, it is a secretive and has nocturnal habit. It means that it will be active in the night time. Okay, the nocturnal animals generally they will be active in the night time. All the daytime they will be having rest or hanging around the trees, and in the night time they'll be coming out of their shelters and then they'll be trying to get some food for them. Okay, that is the general characteristic of a nocturnal animal. So this slender loris is also having this nocturnal habit. So usually where we can find this, it will be traveling from the canopy of one tree to another, but sometimes it will be coming down to the bushes. Canopy in the sense, if you see the tall trees, okay, they'll be forming when the trees are nearby. Mostly you can find such things in the dark forest or thick forest. The top of these trees they'll be forming the canopy. Okay, so here these animals will be mostly found on the canopy of these trees, and very usually they'll be coming down to have some food or something in the bushes. Okay, so where they'll be sleeping, they'll be sleeping the whole day in the foliage or in a hole or crevice. Okay, if you see here, foliage means nothing but the leaves of the plants. Okay, it comes out at dusk in search of prey. As I have told you, in the morning time they'll be sleeping, and in the night time they'll be active and they come out in search of their prey. So generally, what is the food of this animal? Lantana berries, and also eats insects, lizards, small birds, tree frogs, tender leaves, and buds. You generally don't have to remember the food of this, but it is just to know more about the animal. Okay. Now, as I have told you, we have learned which kind of animal it is. So again, now we have to see where we can find this animal. It means what is the habitat of this animal. If you see about the habitat of the animal, it means the home of the animal where we can generally find this animal. We can see them mostly in the tropical rainforest. Okay, we can find them mostly in the tropical rainforest, scrub forest, semi-deciduous forest. It means it is not just confined to a particular kind of forest. We can find them in different types of forests, and we can even see them in the swamps. Okay. Now, again in this we are having two types. One will be red slender and other will be gray in color. Okay. So again, among the slenders we have different types and their habitats and the food habits will be slightly different. Now, if you see what are the threats, okay, we have to see the threats. Okay, generally all the animals are having a certain kind of threat, maybe due to the natural reasons or due to the human involvement. So here, if you see, these animals have a great demand because we would like to keep them as pets. Animals are brought home as pet. That is the reason why they are illegally smuggled. When there is a demand for an animal, definitely they will be sold in the market for high cost. So for that reason, they will be illegally smuggled. Habitat loss, as I have told you, different types of habitats, and when the forests are cut down, when their home is disturbed, that is where they will be losing their habitat. When the habitat is lost, definitely their number will be reducing because not all the animals can adjust in the new environment. Electrocution of live wires, we will be seeing the wires will be used for fencing. We will be giving the electricity will be passing through these wires, and accidentally they may be hanging over these wires and they will die. Okay, so electrocution of live wires and road accidents are also one of the major cause for the reduction in the number of these animals. All these reasons have combinedly been the reasons, all these have been the reasons for the reduction in the number of these animals. So these are the different types of threats which they are facing. Now, if you see the status, as I have told you, when we are learning about any animal in the news, we should know in which status it is. So, this slender loris has been listed as endangered. Earlier it was listed as vulnerable, okay, but its number is reducing day by day. Though there are some conservation methods being followed in some of the places, now we'll see about that also, how the number is being increased through the conservation methods, okay. But now it is listed as endangered by the International Union for the Conservation of Nature, okay. In which schedule it is? It comes under the Schedule 1 of the Wildlife Protection Act 1972. Remember, when an animal is under the Schedule 1, the penalty or the fine imposed due to when we will be illegally smuggling it or poaching, they will be having a huge amount of fine, and the punishment also will be severe, okay. So it is to provide the highest level of legal protection. When the amount of fine is more and the punishment is also severe, then only we can reduce the illegal trade of this animals, or the poaching of this animals, okay. Now if we see here, I have told you about the animal, I have told you the reasons and which kind of threats it is having, everything. But why it is in news now, why this animal is in news now? Because here we have to learn about the place known as Kadavur Hills. Okay, this Kadavur Hills is in the central Tamil Nadu. It is in the central Tamil Nadu, Karur district, where we can find a Kadavur Reserve Forest. Okay, so this is the place where we will be finding more number of this Lendaloris. Okay, so this forest is in the news where it has taken various conservation methods to increase the number of this animal, and they have been successful, okay. The Karur Forest Division was created in 1997. The Karur Forest Division, it was created in the year 1997 after the formation of the Karur Revenue District. And here a lot like 5,450 hectares has been afforested. They have again grown the trees, and under this forest, under this reserve forest, and under the project of Tamil Nadu Afforestation Project. Okay, and this project, which I have told you, the Tamil Nadu Afforestation Project, it was aided by the Japanese government. Okay, the funding was given by the Japanese government for the afforestation in Tamil Nadu under this district. Okay, now the protection has been improved in the recent years. So what happens when the protection is there? They were able to manage the forest, and the population of the wildlife also increased. So which kind of animals we can generally find here? I'm just mentioning few. Indian bison, spotted deer, mouse deer, slender loris, about which we are discussing now, jackal, mongoose, black-napped hare, white boar, porcupine, monitor lizard, pangolin, monkeys, pythons, etc. and many different kinds we can find in this forest. Okay, so if you see the census which was conducted between 2016 to 2017, it shows that there is an increase in the slender loris. So the number has increased to 3,500 in this forest reserve, not in the whole country or the whole state. Particularly under this Kadavur Forest Reserve, they have seen the increase in the slender loris to the number of 3,500. Okay, as I have told you, there are threats still, they are managing to increase the number of this. But as I have told you, there is illegal smuggling of these animals. So what they have to do to protect these animals under this? If one idea, when we generally think, when we have to protect the forest reserve or the animals or the wildlife over there, what is the idea we get generally into our mind? It is about the sanctuary, making it into a sanctuary. If the sanctuary is formed, then it will be having legal protection. Okay, but is it practically possible? This is what the news article about the protection. What is the dilemma in the protection of this animal? If the sanctuary is formed, what will happen? The area will be considered as eco-sensitive zone. Okay, if the eco-sensitive zone will arise, what happens? The hamlets, the villages or the communities which are around this area, they will be affected. Generally, this forest reserve is being protected by these locals, by the forest dwellers who are in and around this area. Okay, now if you consider it as eco-sensitive zone, the activities of these people will be affected. Why? As I have told you, the local villages are involved in protecting the forest. Okay, so what they'll be doing, they'll be harvesting the product from the forest like tamarind or some kinds of leaves, flowers, medicinal plants, fruits, whatever they'll be getting from the forest, these locals will be harvesting. But once you consider it as the sanctuary and it will be declared as a eco-sensitive zone, then these activities will be controlled. So the local people again cannot enter into those regions to harvest the products. So definitely their livelihood will be affected. The forest dwellers generally who are the gatherers, their livelihood will be affected. So this is the reason which has to be considered. Okay. Now the next topic. Four more Indian sites getting Ramsar recognition. So today we will see what are the four sites, what is the importance or the what we will be generally getting in those sites, and we will see what is the need for this Ramsar recognition. Okay. Here what is the context? Four more Indian sites, two are from Haryana and two are from Gujarat. Two sites are from Haryana, two sites are from Gujarat, have been recognized as wetlands of international importance under the Ramsar Convention. So now what is the number of total such sites in our country which are listed under this? 46. Okay. When these four are included, now the number of sites of India which are included in this is raised to 46. So now we are having 46 sites under this Ramsar Convention. Okay. Now, what are the four sites? I have told you like two are from Gujarat and two are from Haryana. So, what are those four? Thol and Wadhwana, they are from Gujarat. Sultanpur and Bindhawas, they are from Haryana. Okay, they are from Haryana. So, these are the two states and these are the four places, and the total number of sites, as I have told you, they are now 46. So what is the main aim? What is the aim? Why do some sites are listed under this Ramsar site? Because they want to develop and maintain an international network. They want to develop an international network. Network of what? Network of wetlands, which are important for the conservation of global biological diversity. Why do we need to conserve this? Because it's not just a simple wetlands, it will be having different flora and fauna which will be dependent on that. We can find different types of animals and the plants. If the wetland is destroyed, even the biodiversity will be affected, because the animals, the diverse means the variety of, okay, bio means the animals and the plants, diverse means variety. The variety of plants and animals which are linked with this also will be affected. So we have to conserve that. We have to conserve the global biological diversity which are related to these wetlands. Why do we need it? Because for our future, for the future of the human, okay, for the future of the human life, for sustainable human life, we have to conserve them and we have to maintain them, because we want to maintain the components, process, benefits which we are getting out of this. Okay, for that reason, these are recognized under this. So first, let's start with the first. Okay, if you see here, Bindhavas Wildlife Sanctuary. Okay, where it is from Haryana. Okay, we have discussed that two sites are from the Haryana. So the first one is Bindhavas Wildlife Sanctuary. If you see here, this is a human-made freshwater wetland. It's not just enough that if you remember the names of these four sites, you have to remember which kind of site it is. Okay, so this is a human-made. Remember, this is not a natural one. This is a human-made, and it is a freshwater wetland. It is also the largest in Haryana. Over 250 bird species use the sanctuary throughout the year as a resting and roosting site. So you have to remember, this is used as a breeding site. Okay, they will be resting here and they will be even laying their eggs. Okay, it is used as a resting and roosting site by 250 birds. This is a human-made freshwater wetland and it is the largest in Haryana. So, as I have told you, this site is recognized. So, there should be some importance. So, this is the site which supports more than 10 globally threatened species. Okay. When they are threatened, there is a chance that they may come under endangered or critically endangered. So, we have to protect them. We have to conserve them. So, this site is a home or it is supporting 10 globally threatened species. Not just in India, they are globally threatened, means their number is reducing in many other places as well. Okay, so what are they? Few, I'll be giving you the examples. They are endangered Egyptian vulture. Okay, steppe eagle, Pallas fish eagle, and black-bellied tern. Okay, so these are the types of animals which are like this site is a home for such animals. Now, if we see about the Sultanpur National Park, it is also in Haryana and it supports 220 species of resident, winter migratory and local migratory water birds. So this is a home for the migratory birds at critical stages of their lifestyle. This is what key point you have to remember. Now again, this is also a home for more than 10 globally threatened species. Okay, so few are globally threatened and few are critically endangered. Okay, so some of the examples again, like the endangered Egyptian vulture, which we have already discussed in the other side. Endangered Egyptian vulture, Saker falcon, Pallas fish eagle, black belly tern. These two are common with the earlier site. Okay. Now, if you see the next one, the Thor Lake Wildlife Sanctuary, which is in the Gujarat, it lies on the Central Asian Flyway. So here, if you see, you can find more than 320 bird species are found here. Okay. Again, this one also supports more than 30 threatened water bird species. 30 threatened water bird species such as critically endangered white-rumped vulture, sociable lapwing, vulnerable Sarus crane. You cannot remember all the 30 names. If you mention few in your answer, that is enough. Okay. Common pochard, lesser white-fronted goose. These are the animals which we can generally find here. Now, the Wadhwana wetland in Gujarat, it is internationally important for its bird life. Why? Because it provides wintering ground to migratory water birds. We generally know that in the areas which are on the north latitude, means which are near to the poles, those birds will be migrating towards the equator and the tropical region, because it will be completely frozen in the time of winter. So during the winter, they will be traveling towards the tropics. Okay. Again, in the summer, they will be traveling back. So during the winter, these wetlands will be like the resting home for these birds. So it provides wintering ground to migratory water birds, including over 80 species that migrate on the Central Asian flyway. Okay, now if you see here, here also we can find the threatened and near threatened species. It means if we ignore them now, they will be threatened in the future. Here again, the same type of animals we can see. They are vulnerable common pochard, near threatened Dalmatian pelican, gray-headed fish eagle, and Ferzinus duck. Okay, so these are the types of animals which we can find here. Now, if we see about the Ramsar Convention, we have learned about which are the new sites which are included and where they are. Remember the states, remember the places names. Okay, now you don't have to learn the animal names and all, but you have to remember the place name and what it is significant about, like whether it's a roosting site, whether it is a home for the migratory birds, whether it is a winter ground. Those are the key terms which you have to remember. Now, the Ramsar Convention. The Ramsar Convention is an international treaty. It means it is not just limited to India or among only regionally among few countries. It is an international treaty for the conservation and wise use of wetlands. It means they are going to take measures by protecting these wetlands. If you recognize a particular site under this, they have to be given a lot of protection and they have to be conserved. Okay, so for the wise use of wetlands without destroying the natural habitat of the species or the animals over there. It is named after the Iranian city of Ramsar. So from where we got this name Ramsar? It is a city in Iran. It is the name of the city in Iran on the Caspian Sea, where the treaty was signed on February 2nd, 1971. So you have to remember the point, when it was signed, where it was signed. Okay. Now, if you see here, I have told you that 46 Ramsar sites are in India. Now, including these four, now the number reached to 46. So, if you have to name few, you have to remember, you have to go through all the 46, but I am just giving few names now here. Chilika Lake, which is in Odisha. Okay. Next, Harike Lake, which is in Punjab. So you have to remember the name and which state it is. Okay, you have to remember because in some questions they'll be asking you to match the following. Like they'll be giving the Ramsar sites on one side and they'll be asking you to match them with the exact states. You have to remember that. So you have to remember the place as well as the state in which it is. Okay. And again, the Loktak Lake, which is in Manipur, the Vular Lake, which is in Jammu and Kashmir. So you have to remember all these names. Now, why do we actually need these wetlands? We have learned about the wetlands. We have learned the which are the Ramsar Convention and the importance of this. But what is the need of conserving the wetlands? Why do we actually need? Because they provide us with important resources. These wetlands will provide us with important resources and ecosystem services. And ecosystem services, which kind of services can they give? What is the main, like what is the main way in which we depend in our ecosystem? Just leave about the birds or the animals. As a humans, we depend on the ecosystems. What is the basic thing which we need from it? Food, water, right? Along with this, we need many other services from the ecosystem like fiber, groundwater recharge. Okay, as this water lands, they'll be always collecting the water, the rainwater or the overflooding of the rivers. They'll be collected in the wetlands and they'll be seeping into the ground, and thereby they help in recharging the groundwater. For water purification, these are the different services provided to us by the wetlands. Okay, flood moderation. Okay, so if you see here, not just providing with enough food and water, they are even providing us with different types of services. Soil erosion, you can add all these points in your answer if asked. Okay, and climate regulation. Okay, and the major source of water and the main supply of fresh water comes from the wetlands. As I have already told you, they will be recharging the groundwater. So main source of water we get mostly from these wetlands. They will be absorbing the water, and that water soaked rainfall will be helping in recharging the groundwater. Okay, thank you.